Welcome back. In this video, we'll actually be looking into MPLS L2 VPNs. Uh, More specifically, we'll be actually um, looking into MPLS ATOM and the L2TP V3, right? So yeah, let's dive into it. So I have a topology here, right? To start with, what's the difference between a L2 VPN and a L3 VPN, right? So in our earlier sections, we have actually um, looked into the intra MPLS and the inter MPLS VPNs. Those were the L3 VPNs, right? Because the provider edge would do L3 lookup, right, and then forward the packet, right? Or mainly, more specifically, if you look at the service provider core here, right, the service provider core which is over here, it's still MPLS level switched, but uh, mainly the provider edges, right, would be doing a L3 lookup, and these interfaces will actually have a IP address, right, in case of a L3 VPN. Now L2 VPN is what we are going to look at, right? In L2 VPN, basically the whole service provider core would act like a huge switch, right, a huge layer to switch, right, and all your it would appear all your different sites are basically connected, in this way, right? So at the end of the day, let's say we want to establish a L2 VPN between site A and site B, right? So they both will be connected in one particular network, right? The network could be probably 192.1.100.0, right? So the site A will have a dot one and site B probably will have a dot two, right? As simple as that. So it would appear as both of these sites are directly connected, right? So customers go for L2 VPN when they want such kind of a feature, right? When they want both of their sites to appear as if they are neighbors. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I think we can start with what we are going to look at today. So we are going to specifically be looking into Atom, that is any transport over MPLS, and the other one being L2TP, version 3, right? The layer 2 tunneling protocol version 3. Now in your Atom, right, let me just clear this, right? So in my Atom, right, as part of Atom, we'll probably be looking into three uh, I would say, yeah, there'll be probably a couple of flavors which we'll be looking into, right? Like I said, Atom stands for any transport over MPLS. It is a P2P kind of a VPN, right? Point to point. We'll actually be looking into the multi-point VPN, which is your VPLS, but this is mainly a P2P or point to point, right, circuit. And we will, like I said, we'll be looking into various flavors where we will either sometimes use the physical interfaces, right? The physical interfaces, we will actually be trying the same thing with sub interfaces as well, right? And then we will also be trying the same thing with serial interfaces, right? So this will be three various variants over here which we'll actually look into, right? And then we will actually do a mismatch or a mix of physical interfaces and your serial interface. So that would be inter working, right? That is another different flavor of Atom. So these are all the various flavors of Atom. And to conclude, we'll also look into L2TP V3. So this is when you don't have a MPLS, right? Atom works only with MPLS, right? Whereas L2TP is when you don't have MPLS in the core and you are doing some kind of a SP route, right? IP routed network. In that case, you can go for L2TP with, right? And this one is also your P2P, point to point, right? So these are various flavors of L2 VPN which we'll be looking into. So let's get started. To start with, we will do the first thing, right, on the menu, which is my um, Atom, right? And we'll be looking into physical interfaces, right? I'll detail on what we are doing. I'll set out the objective right away, right? So we have the service provider here. The basic prerequisite is that we need to have your IGP running, right? In my service provider here, I need to have two things, right? IGP and MPLS, right? So let's do that. Let's get that up and running, and then we will actually dwell into the actual Atom part of it, right? So let's do this basic stuff. So to start with, we have to do R1, R2 and R3. So on my R1, I will start with configuring the loopback. IP address, basically because it is R1, let's do 1.1.1, and we are planning to use probably OSPF as my IGP. So be careful when you configure your loopback subnet mask, right? We have studied this earlier in my OSPF session as well. Make sure that you use because otherwise the loopback and the LDP will have a difference of labels, right? So if you're using a /24 mask here, right, in that case, LDP will end up, because OSPF always advertises the /32 mask for a loopback address, right? So you don't want to have mismatch of LDP labels. So that's why I always make sure that for loopback, always use /32, right, as the mask. The MPLS command, MPLS LDP, router ID is important. Router ID would be what? Loopback 0. I can use loopback 0. And let's go and enable the interface Ethernet 0/0. You see this interface, which is IP address would be 192.1.12.1 and 255.255.0. And what else? Let's also enable the MPLS IP, and let's do a no shut on this. Okay, so that's good. We'll have to do the same thing on Ethernet. Actually no, right? That's good. Now we will do router OSPF, right? Process probably is going to be 1. Router ID for your OSPF could be anything. I'm going to use 1.0.0.0.1. The networks which you want to advertise would be your 12 network over here, right? This one .0. Use the right mask here as well. It's going to be /24, right? So the mask is, and it's area 0, and the other one is my which network? It's my 1 network, right? I want that also to be advertised. So let's just remove this, and we have this. Okay, and yeah, for the 1 network it's a /8 network. So let's go and put the right mask here. Got it? So that's your R1. Now your R2 would be almost the same, just the change in addresses. Let's do that. This would change to 2.2. Loopback is good, and this interface 0/0 would basically be carrying .2, whereas we will also have one more interface, right? This one over here, that will be going to be 0/1, and that is 23.2, right? And here you will have to put in this as well as probably one more. Let's change the ID. This is 23 and this is going to be 2. I think we are good with R2. Let's go and do R3, which is going to be almost similar to R1, right? So let's fix this. This is going to be 3.3.3. This is good. Under your Ethernet 0/0, we're going to have 23.3, right? Looks good. What else do we need to change? Let's change the router ID here to, hope you guys are able to see this. Let me just pull this up a little. So we have 3, and we are gonna have the 23 network, and this is gonna be 3 as well, right? So I think we are good. Let's go and put these configurations on my router. Okay, so where are my routers? Yeah, so this goes on R1, my R1 here. Okay, let's also put a host name here. Just put that everywhere else. It's 2, and this is my R3, right? That's good. So let's do this. And now get copied. So we are good with R1. Let's move on. Let's do R2. We're good with R2 as well, and the last one being R3. Okay, So we have done the basic part, right, where we have put the IGP and the MPLS, which was the basic prerequisite for enabling or doing L2 VPN configuration. Now that we have done that, let's check if we have the connectivity, right, which means all my because we are running OSPF, we will probably have to wait for a couple of minutes for the whole thing to come up. Right, you can see the OSPF neighbor here coming up, right? It's my network here. So I should be able to ping what, my R2. Right, that's good. And I should also be able to ping my R3 from here. Let's check if that is working too. Yep, that's good. So we have all the IGP setup and MPLS setup in the core. The next step is to go and do the MPLS, in Atom over the physical links, right? Let me just erase this so that I can probably write in some steps of what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to use the space here now. Like I said, we started with Atom, right? My bad. Okay, so start with Atom. Give me one sec. Okay, so we started with Atom, and what we're doing first is my physical interfaces, physical Ethernet links, right? So what I mean by this is that um, right, so this is my first objective. So what I'm trying to do here is we are going to establish a L2 VPN between which site? Between site A and site B, right? And we are basically going to use the physical interfaces and not the sub interfaces, right? So our customer, this is my customer, right? Let's say we have one customer who have two different sites, site A and site B. So they need a connection to each other on the same network, and the cloud would be basically the layer 2 cloud from the perspective of the customer, right? And we also know that the customer is using what? Not sub interfaces, they are actually using physical interfaces, right? So that is why we are explicitly calling this Atom, and the flavor of this is the one which is using physical Ethernet interfaces, right? And we have done the basic prerequisite IGP and MPLS. So what is the only step which we have to do? Okay, before that we'll also have to set up the client sites, right? R4 and R5. So let's do that. So R4, right? This is again nothing to do with MPLS Atom, or nothing to do with L2 VPN. It's just setting up the client side. So what will we have on the client? We'll have a loopback probably, right? Let me just go up. So this is going to be R4. The loopback is probably going to be 4 or 10 probably, or 4. Yeah, 4 is good. 4.4.4, right? I'm probably going to run EIGRP here, so I can even go for a 255 network, shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, so what else do I need here? Probably the interface IP as well, Ethernet 0/0, right? This interface here, because at the end of the day we want both these sites over here to be connected in the same network, right? So the network could be something like 192.1.45.0, right? That is what we want. That is our final objective. We want both the sites, site A and B, to be connected in one single network, right? Where the service provider will be basically acting like a L2 cloud, right? That's the whole objective. So this IP address here is going to be that 192.145.4, right? This is good. What else? We would need to run a routing protocol because we have the multiple sites, so we need the routing protocol for the multiple sites. So we'll go with the, say, EIGRP here, simple to set up. The no auto summary, and the network is going to be what? this 192.45 network we'll have to put dot 0, sorry, and the other one is the 4 network. I think that's it. So that's going to be my configuration on R4. On R5, which is the other side, also the similar configuration. Gonna put a R5 here. This is gonna be 5.5.5. This is 45.5, and the rest is good. So let's just pick this up, put it on R4, clear the screen, right? With that, thing not get copied, right? So we are good with R4 and R5 as well. Sorry, this has to be 5. So let's clear the screen. Okay, so we are good with that. So we are done. We have done the configuration on the CEs as well, right? Now the most important configuration of the actual, Atom physical interface configuration is which goes on the provider edges, which is R1 and R3. But what is this configuration, right? Let me just put a comment here, and what we are doing is Atom, right? We are doing Atom, and the first flavor, which is physical interfaces, right? So what would go here is basically, under this interface, which interface? Ethernet 0/1, which is the one which is connected to the CE, right? Let's pick that interface. So under this interface, we are going to use, first let's make a no shut. Now we are going to use a command called xconnect, right? Xconnect. So what we are doing is we are basically telling that all the traffic which is coming on this interface Ethernet 0/1, we want it to be sent where? To the other PE, which is R3. So what is the IP address, loopback address of R3, which is 3.3.3, right? And we need to give a circuit ID, right? So this is going to create a circuit at the end of the day, right? Very similar to our older technologies like frame relay and stuff, right? So it's going to create a dedicated circuit, right? And the circuit ID is 100. And in the core, you're gonna encapsulate using MPLS. So you need to put the encapsulation as MPLS, right? As simple as that. That will do the trick. Let's do the same thing on R3 as well. The only change here is you're gonna change the xconnect IP to 1.1.1, right? So let's pick this up and put this on R3, and let's pick the other one up on, which is on R1, this one, and let's put that on R1 over here. Sorry, my bad. Okay, there you go. So we have done this. We have set the L2 VPN, or mainly with respect to Atom, right? The physical interfaces, right? We have set this up, right? So we have set the whole xconnect setup. Let's check if no, it is actually working. What we'll do is let's check the xconnect if it is already up. We'll have to do xconnect all, I believe. Okay, it's in down state. Probably will take some time to come up. Let's wait for a minute. So this is xconnect 100, and this was xconnect. Still in down state. It does take some time, so we'll have to wait. Okay, see, now it is coming up. So now if I refresh this, yeah, there you see, we have our xconnect, come up. So you see there are two segments, right? One going from R1 to R2 and the other one going from R2 to R3. So both of them seem to be up now, right? We should be able to see the same thing on my other side as well, which is R3. Clear the screen a bit. Do we have it? Yep, here also it's good, it's up. Which means if you go to my R4 now, you can see the neighbor has come up, right? So if I do show IP EIGRP neighbors, there you go, we have the neighbor, right, which is site B. Now I can ping my site B from site A. There you go, see the ping works, right? So what did we actually end up doing? We actually connected both the sides, right, using L2 VPN, using the whole SP core as a L2 switch, right? And we were able to connect A and B in a single network, which is 192.145.0. It appears as if site A and B are directly connected now, because this is dot 4, this is dot 5, right? So that was basically my first flavor, which is using the physical interfaces. Let's move on. What are we doing next? The next is where we use Ethernet but sub interfaces, right? So this is my second flavor. This is what we are going to look into next, which means my R4 and R5, the customer sites, right, which were R4 and R5, they are going to be using what? They are going to be using sub interfaces, right? So what we'll do is, so let's go to my R4 and R5 and kind of like default the interfaces, because I want to remove this old configuration, right? So let's run the command called I think it's default uh, default interface Ethernet 0/1 should work. There you go on R4, and let's do this on R5 as well. Okay, and let's go and configure my sub interfaces. So which means I go to Ethernet 0 slash sorry, I think I made a mistake. Did I do that on 0? Okay, I was supposed to do it on 0/0. My bad. Let's do it on 0/0, right? Because that's the interface where my customers are running 0/0. Good. So now we go inside Ethernet, Ethernet 0/0. We do a no shot, and what else? Probably let's go and put the interface Ethernet 0/0.1, because we want a sub interface. Gonna do encapsulation. So we are still going to do the whole L2 VPN between the same sites, right? Site A and site B. But we are doing only changes. Only difference here is we are basically doing it between the sub interfaces. Now to configure sub interface, you're gonna use encapsulation .1q100, right? The VLAN tag is 100 for us, and the IP address is also needed, which is 192.1. Let's say 45.4 and 255, 255.0, right? There you go. The only difference is earlier we had this IP address under the main interface, right, under the physical interface. Now we are doing it under the sub interfaces, right? So I just wanted to show you this because this is a flavor of the whole L2 VPN as well, right? Gonna repeat the same thing here, right? So we have defaulted it. Now we will go to the interface, and we will do a no shut. Same thing what I did on the other side. I'm gonna do the same thing, right? Let's clear the screen a bit. Looks little, yeah. So we go to this interface, we put in our encapsulation, which is .1q, and it's going to be 100, right? What else? So we will also put the IP address. The only difference is here it is, instead of .4 it is .5, right? Looks good. Yeah. So now what else should we do? I mean, I know that the neighborship is coming up because of the old configuration on R1 and R3, right? That's my PE router. So let's go and remove this configuration as well, right? So if you look at my topology, which was the interface, it was 0/1, right? The PE interfaces. Let's clear that interfaces also. So let's do that. Let's go to and do default interface Ethernet 0/1, right? We did it over here. Let's also do it on R3, right? As soon as you do this, you can see that the the whole the XConnect L2 VPN setup basically goes down, right? The whole circuit, right? The XConnect circuit which we had created would go down, right? We could check that as well. Show XConnect, right? You can see there is nothing here, right? Because we kind of defaulted the interfaces. Now what is the actual configuration which would go here is that, let me put that on my notes. So now we are doing atom, but we are doing atom on sub interfaces, right? So what is the difference? Let me still copy this. But the difference is we did a no shut, and we also put in what? We also put in 0/1.1. Okay, we did not do that. Okay, so this one. So the difference is now we go on we create a sub interface, on my provider edge as well, right? And what will be the encapsulation? The same as what we have on the customer side. I'll actually tell you the use case behind it, once I finish the configuration, right? So this would still remain the same. Let's use a different ID. We used 100 earlier. Now let's use probably 111, and that's it. This is the only configuration which you would need to make this, work, right? Same thing here as well. The only difference here would be changing this to 1.1.1, right? You can see from the pattern there's nothing major difference. It's just that now we have done all of the configuration under the sub interface, right? Earlier it was under the main interface. Now we have just enabled sub interfaces, put in the VLAN ID, and we have done it under the interface, right? So excuse me. Yeah, so let's pick this up, go to R3, put it here. Let's do the same thing on R1. Let's pick this up here, and that would go on R1 here. Okay, that's a mistake. So there you go, that's done, which means now my adjacency should come up anytime. Let's give it few seconds, because like earlier, it takes a bit of time for the XConnect to come up. Show XConnect all, right? It's in down state, but this was the case earlier as well. It takes a bit of time, right, for it to come up, right? But you can see the difference. Earlier this was the output, we did not have VLAN mentioned here, right? But you can see the segment, now we have enabled VLAN, so that's why you see this, right? Let's wait for a few seconds. So once that comes up, we should still go back to having connectivity between site A and site B. Right now you see the holding timer has gone down, the neighborship has gone down between R4 and R5, right? It has gone down. But once once our circuit comes up here, we should be able to connect. Right, so let's wait. Yeah, see, it is coming up now, and you can see the circuit has come up on R3. Let's see if it has come up here as well. Yes, it has come up here. So which means I can go to my R4, and you can see the adjacency has come up, and I will be able to ping my other side, which is side B, 192.1.45.5, and there you go, it works, right? So what did we actually do? We did the second flavor of my atom, which is basically using my Ethernet sub interfaces, right? Now the use case here is that imagine I have a customer over here. Excuse me. Imagine I have a customer, or imagine I have multiple customers, right? So here I was using obviously just one customer, but imagine I have one more customer here who is using the same VLAN number, right? I'm using VLAN 100 here, right? There could be another customer who's using the similar VLAN number, right? So segregating the traffic here using or let's say for the same customer we had a different VLAN, right? 400 and 100, and maybe the other other VLAN was 200, right? Let's say for the same customer they have a IT traffic, and probably the other traffic is your finance traffic, right? And both the traffics probably had different VLAN numbers, right? 100 and 200. So creating multiple sub interfaces over here kind of provides you that scalability, right? So now you can cater to multiple traffics here, and at the same time have the site-to-site connectivity over L2 VPN for multiple kind of traffic, right? It's not limited to using just one single VLAN tag. You can use multiple VLAN tags, but at the same time, it's either you can have multiple physical interfaces, or you could use the my approach which I've used here, which is creating multiple sub interfaces, right? I think this is just cluttered up, so let me just clear this a bit and probably take a different screenshot so that we keep it a bit fresh. Paste it here. All right, just to recap, what we have done is we looked into Atom, and we looked into two flavors. One is my physical and the other one was sub interfaces, right? So what are we doing next? Serial physical interfaces, right? The next one which we are going to look into is serial interfaces. What I mean by that is, if you look at the topology here, right, between sites between sites C and D, you can see you have you have your serial interfaces being used here, right? So let's see how we can do or achieve the same thing over here as well. Okay, so to do this, first let's set up this customer edges, which is R6 and R7, right? Let's do that, R6 and R7. Probably we can pick most of it from here, right? For R6, let's just change this to R6. Loopback is going to be 6.6.6. What else? The IP address is going to be Ethernet 0/0. Sorry, it's not Ethernet, it's going to be serial interface and 1/0, right? And the address is 67.6. 67.6. And what else? So that is good. And yeah, the EIGRP as well. The network here is 67 and this network is going to be 6, right? And the other thing is, serial interface can use multiple protocols like PPP, HDLC. Let's stick to PPP over here, right? Let's do PPP over here. So that's your R6. Let's do the same thing on R7. Slight tweak, change to R7 here. This becomes 7.7.7, and this becomes what, 67.7, right? Because that is what you want to have. You want to have like end-to-end connectivity, but in a single network, right? 67 network. And this is 67, this is going to be 7. And yeah, that's good. So let's quickly put this on R6. Let's clear the screen. Right, so there you go. R6 is good. Let's go to R7. Let's clear the screen. All right, that is good. R6 and R7 we are good. So now we'll go and configure what? The provider edges, which is my R1 and R3, right? Because we want the connectivity between R6 and R7. We want it to be in one single network, which is 192.1.67.0, right? By basically converting the whole core into a L2 switch, right? So the same drill goes here, which means I go to my R1 and R3. Where is R1? So let's just put a different title here. Yeah, probably I can just copy this and change it, right? So what are we doing? Atom, it's still Atom, but we are doing serial interfaces. And the interface is what? On my provider edge also, it is serial 1/0. Okay, you do a no shut, and the encapsulation should be PPP because that's the serial interface encapsulation, right? That's it. We can change the circuit number to some new number, which is 101, right? That's it. So we do the same thing on R3 as well. The only difference is you change this to 111, right? So as simple as that. So XConnect basically helps you do that. Every traffic which comes from here, it is going to switch it to using this. That is the reason of using this ID, right? The circuit switch number, the circuit ID basically. So we are basically, every traffic which comes here, it is going to kind of like encapsulate in a encapsulated with this particular ID and send it to the other side. And on the other side, when it looks at this particular ID, it knows where to send the packet, right? it knows which interface it has to send the packet. So let's pick the Atom serial on configuration on R1, and that is where you would put this. There you go. So we have done that on yeah, so with that on that interface, give me a minute. Yeah, so we do the same thing on the R3 as well. Let's put a config more. There you go. Right, so that looks good. Now the same drill, let's go and check if our X-Connect is up. It takes some time to come up. There you go, it's still in the down state. We'll wait for a few seconds for it to come up. Once it comes up, our R6 and R7 will have the connectivity. Right, so let's wait for that. Yep, it's come up now. You can see clearly this is the serial interface. This is the circuit, the X-Connect circuit, which we created but for the sites R6 and R7. Right, we should be able to see that here as well. There you go, it is visible. Now you go to R6, you can see the adjacency have come up. Right, so what we effectively did was we actually established a network here, or we established a direct connectivity between R6 and R7. So with respect to the customer, they basically get a feeling that R6 and R7 are directly connected, right? Using which network? This particular network. It's going to be .6 here and .7 here. We can check that. We can see if it is pingable by doing what? Ping 192.1.67.7. Right? See, R6 is able to talk to R7 or the other side. Right? Great. Now next, what are we going to do next? Which flavor? So we are done with this as well. The next is we are going to look into interworking. What is interworking? The use case is that the requirement, right? The requirement is that between R7 and R8, right? Let's look at R7 and R8. So you have the R7 over here, right? This is this is R8. You have R8 here and R7 over here. So we want to establish the whole connectivity between these two guys here, right? Maybe let's use a different color. So you want to establish the connectivity over here between these two sides, right? But you observe here what is happening is one of the side is connected using one of the side is connected using your Ethernet, and the other side is connected using my serial interface over here, right? So that's why we say it's an interworking kind of a setup, because you have a mix match of the media. One side it is serial and the other side it is your Ethernet interface, right? So how would you do this? So to start with, first let's go and configure our Cs, right, which is my R8 and R8 and R7, right? So do I have R7 already configured here? Let's do R8. So on R8, what we will do is let's put this piece first, right? So this is going to be R8 and 8.8.8. What else? The interface, right, is needed. The interface is Ethernet 0/0, which is going to be between 7 and 8. It is going to be 78.8, right? Makes sense. There's no encapsulation, obviously. Let's remove that. This is good. And the last part is the EIGRP, the routing protocol, which is needed. So this is going to be 8, this is going to be 78, and I think we are good. That's a configuration which would go on R8. On my R7, I think I already have a network set up, right? 7.7 is there. We have 78, on my serial interfaces. Okay, so yeah, so I no longer want this, so I'll have to remove this 67 and I'll have to put it as 78.7 and fix this as well, right? So probably what I'll do is let me just take this and create a new one, right? So this is going to be my new R7, and this is going to be 78, right? Because that's the connectivity which I want, 78.7. And yeah, so this on one side it is obviously my uh, serial interface, right? That's the whole idea behind interworking. On one side it is Ethernet, other side it is serial interface, and here also I'll change it to 78. So that looks good. So let me just go and do R8 first, and then let's do R7. So this is R8. Let's clear the screen, and there you go, R8. Okay, I think I did not paste. Okay, while that gets pasted, let's go and do this. So we already have the loopback from the earlier one. I just need to go to this interface and change the IP address on R7, right? So I do no IP address, and let's put this part up here. That's good. And let's remove the existing router into you know, EIGRP configuration and put the new one, right? There you go. So yeah, so that's what I'm doing here. So I've set up my R7 and R8, basically these two sites, right? I've done the CE configuration. Now my whole idea is basically to configure the PEs, which are my PEs in this case. Again, I think it's got a bit messy, so let me clear this out so that, you know, we have a better, maybe let's just remove all of this. Just take a snapshot of this. So what I'm trying to do right now is do interworking, right? Which means I'm basically trying to concentrate between between my site R8 and R7. I'm trying to do this, but the tricky part here is, you know, on one side we have if you look here, on one side we have, you know, my serial interface, and on the other side we have our interesting you know, minute, yeah, so on the other side we have what, we have our this thing, our Ethernet interface, right? So we are seeing how to figure this out. Great. So now goes back to my R. So R2. So now we are going to be using R2 and R3 and not R1 and R3, right? So I already have my R1, R2 here. I just need to put this. Let me just copy this. Let's go here, right? So on my R2, it's pretty. Give me a second. Okay, so this is interworking, right? We're doing interworking. So when you do interworking, you're going to use pseudowire for doing this, right? So let me just fix this. Let's change this to interworking. So whenever you have a mismatch of media, you have to do the configuration in a slightly different way. How do you do that? So you start by creating a pseudowire, right? Pseudowire, you can create a class, you can give any name to that. You say ABC. Now once you create a class, you're gonna put the encapsulation MPLS, which we earlier did as well under XConnect, and you explicitly call this interworking IP, right? We are basically saying this circuit will be interworking because we have a mismatch of the media. And then you go to the interface Ethernet 0/0, right? And under that you do the same XConnect configuration 3.3.3 and give the ID probably 175, right? The pseudowire class which you defined earlier, you're going to link here, right? This is the class, right? ABC. So that you're going to go and link it here. You're going to do no shut. As simple as that. So when you're doing interworking, always create a pseudowire class, put in your stuff inside that. You're going to define the interworking. You're going to say encapsulation MPLS, then go to your interface and do this, right? So we got to do the same thing on R2 and R3 here. Only difference is fix this to one. Sorry, this is going to be 2.2.2, right? Makes sense? Let's pick this up and put this on R3. I think I did not copy it. So that's good. Okay, incompatible with IP address command on Ethernet 0/0. Did I make a mistake? Sorry, that was supposed to be on okay, so this was supposed to be on the serial interface. I think I made a mistake. Give me a minute. So this is serial interface, right? I actually copied the same thing here as well. Okay, so this is serial interface, and the other changes you gotta put this as encapsulation PPP over here, and the rest would look good. Okay, so let's do this. I hope my this is still good. Let me just check. Did I break something? 0/0 MPLS IP. Okay, that's good. So let me just clear the screen and do this again. Ah, my bad. Copy, and let's put this. Okay, so that's my R3, and my R2 is basically here, right? Here it's still Ethernet, right? On my R3 it was serial 1/0. Now here we're gonna do encapsulation, right? There you go. Okay, is there a mistake? Incompatible with IP address. Yeah, okay, so we need to remove the IP address on this first. Let's remove that. No IP address, because we are doing L2 VPN, right? There's no oh, my bad. Okay, so I think the interface was wrong. It was supposed to be 0/2 here, and I ended up putting 0/0. So let's go back and put my interface back. This is all right. So this is what I want. Okay, there you go. So now let's wait for this is good. Let me just check if everything is good. This is there, and yeah, I think it should be good. Cool. So now let's wait for the same thing, right? We gotta wait for the XConnect to come up on my R2 and R3, right? So let's clear the screen a bit here and do show XConnect all. There you go, it's already come up, right? It's already come up. If I do the same thing on my R3, you can see it has come up over here as well, right? So this is the one, right? So okay, give me a minute. So what number did I use? It's 175. This one. Yeah, so this one, the second one, right? The 175 one. Great, it has come up, which means we should have connectivity between what and what? Between R8 and R7. Let's see if that has worked. You can see here on R8 we have the adjacency come up with R7. I can check that by doing a ping to R7. There you go, it works, right? So we are able to kind of like connect both the sides across a MPLS IP core, but by using a L2 VPN. And the interesting thing we did here was, on one side we have Ethernet, and on the other side we had serial interface, right? Awesome. So what else? The last piece which I want to touch up here is my L2TP version 3, right? So till now we looked into the use case where my core had MPLS and IGP, right? But what if I don't have MPLS? So that's where we use the L2TP. So let's go and do that. So first we'll have to remove the MPLS from R1, R2 and R3, right? So let's do that. Let's go to R1. So we will go inside my interfaces and let's remove it, right? So interface Ethernet 0/0. I'm gonna do no MPLS IP, right? I removed it here. See LDP going down already, and let's also kind of like default on my other interfaces, these two interfaces as well, right? Because I don't want the older Xconnects and all of that configuration. So I'm gonna remove that. I'm gonna do which one? Default, interface Ethernet 0/1, and also the serial 1/0. Right, there you go, removed. And gotta do the same exercise on my other side, on my R2 as well. So let's go here, let's do no MPLS IP, and let's do these both things. That's 0 slash, sorry, on this one, on R2 we have to remove MPLS on other interface as well. We have two interfaces here, so let's remove here as well. And we got a default only one interface, which is 0/2. The last exercise is on my R3. Let's clear the screen a bit. Let's do no MPLS IP, and default my two interfaces, which is, sorry, we're gonna do default interface Ethernet 0/1, and the other one is serial interface 1/0. All right, there you go. So we have reset everything, which means if I do a ping from my, if I do a ping, or let's, sorry, not, let's do a trace, right? If I do a trace to 1.1.1, using the source of 3.3.3, we should not be using MPLS anymore. It should actually go as a IP packet. We should be able to check that here, right? Meanwhile, while that happens, what I want to show here is that, let me actually pick another screenshot to explain this part, which means let's just pick this up, let's clean this up a bit, right? All right, so if I paste this, so the requirements are almost still the same, right? The only thing which has changed is that we have removed the MPLS, from the core, right? So the requirements here is that R4 and R5, right? They need a connection to each other, right? We're trying to connect these both sides, and the cloud which is at the center, would be a layer 2 cloud from the perspective of the customer. Yeah, so let's get started. So what are the first thing we'll do is we'll configure our PE routers, right, to link our R4 and R5 together, right? So let's do that. So which are my PE routers, which is R1 and R3, right? Let's go top here and probably have a config. Yep. So let's go and put L2 TP version 3, right? This is still a point-to-point, L2 VPN, but the difference is that there is no MPLS here, right? Great. So on R1, what you do is you start with the excuse me. Yeah, you start with the pseudo wire class, right? So let's start with the pseudo wire class, similar to what we did with the interworking, right, earlier. We can give a name, say DDD. Actually, let me go down. Okay, I think this is visible. So we do the pseudo wire class, and then we do encapsulation, right? When you do encapsulation, this is where you actually put in your L2 TP version 3 encapsulation. Okay, then you go and define the interface. It's like the update source interface, right? In MPLS, excuse me, yeah, in your BGP, I think we have done this quite a lot, right? We have done like update source, so that the hello packets use that particular interface as the source IP. So this is similar to that, right? This is we are going to use the loopback 0 here, right? So we're done with that. So you define the pseudo-wire class. Now you go to the interface of your interest, interface Ethernet 0/1, right? On PE1, that's the interface which is connected to site A. Go inside that, do a no shut, right? We do a no shut, and what else? We are going with the let's go with what? Let's go with the I think on my R4, what do I have on R4? Let me see. Do I have sub interfaces? I'll have to check that. Give me a second. Yeah, we have sub interface. So let's go with the sub interfaces approach. So what we'll do is, now we have done a no shut on Ethernet. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, this one. So we have done a no shut on interface Ethernet 0/1. Now let's go down to the sub interface 0/1.1. Encapsulation is important. Encapsulation dot one q 100, right? That's the VLAN tag. And now you use your xconnect command, right? Xconnect to what? From R1 you want to connect it to 3, right? You want to switch all those packets to R3. And the xconnect circuit ID, I can use something like 199. The encapsulation, right? We were earlier using MPLS, remember, right? You see here at the top we're using MPLS, but now we're going to use L2 TP version 3, right? And the pseudo wire class which you earlier defined, you're going to link it down here, right? The triple D, this one. So that's it. That's the configuration which should go on your P, which is R1. The same thing, let's copy and let's go down and put it here on my R3 as well. The only difference is, all of this remains the same. Just the IP address here changes to 1.1.1 because that's the neighbor, right? And on R4 and R5 I still have my sub interfaces. I just checked that, or I can just check it once again here as well, just to show you guys. Sorry. Let's check this. Right, we have the encapsulation .1 q100 and the IP address. The same thing should be there on my R5 as well, which is my other site. Right, so I have the .1 q and all of that is good, right? So now let's just put this configuration, which is so this is on R3, right? Let's put this on R3. Is R3 here? Okay, that's good. Let's go and do the next one on R1, which is over here, right? Looks good. Let's do that. Yep, we are done with that. So now we just sit behind and watch the magic, right? So we want to connect what? R4 and R5, right? So right now you don't see anything. Show IP EIGRP neighbors, right? There are no neighbors currently, but once this circuit comes up, right, the L2TP version 3 circuit comes up between R1 and R3, we should be good to go, right? So let's wait for the circuit to come up, which means you're gonna do show xconnect all, right? It's still in down state. Let's wait for some time. It should be up anytime. So it is between R1 and R3, right? So let's see. Okay, it's up here, right? It's up on R3 already. Let's check here. There you go. It's up here as well, which means now if I go to R4 and R5, see, you can see the adjacency coming up, right? So now if I go and basically do this, you can see the neighbor has come up, and I can basically ping my other side, my other site basically, which is 192.145.5, and there you go, it worked, right? So now we actually connected my site A and site B via L2 VPN, but this L2 VPN was L2 TP version 3, right? It wasn't using MPLS. It was not a MPLS layer 2 VPN, because the core did not have MPLS. Rather, it was just a IP core, right? IP routed core. I had just a IGP running here, and still we were able to convert the whole core into like a switch, right? We were able to make it behave like a switch, and we were able to run it, right? So these were all the various versions of L2 VPNs I wanted to show. Do tune in my channel, because there is going to be another video on VPLS as well on the channel, so you can look at that way, or that's a different technique of implementing L2 VPN. So you can have a look at that and how that differs from this and all of that, right? So thanks for watching. Bye.